Solomon decided to become a gardener. He planted great fields, orchards, even built fancy ways of watering them, built pools and I would guess canals. He made a fancy old-fashioned irrigation sprinkler system to water his gardens he made. I got me servants and maidens and had servants born in my house. I also had great possessions of great and small cattle above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold and the peculiar treasures of kings and of the provinces. I got me men singers and women singers and the delights of all the sons of men as musical instruments and that of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. So Solomon became immensely wealthy. He didn't forget his wisdom while he was doing that. He continued to be wise, and he continued to try to figure out what it was really worth. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart is rejoiced in all my labor. This was my portion in all my labor. So anything he wanted, he went and got. Solomon, it says in the book of Kings, had 700 wives and 300 concubines. He had more wives than anyone around him. He had more great palaces than anyone around. He says, Then I looked on all the labor that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. So Solomon has tried all these things, and it's still not worked. He still has no satisfaction. He has no joy. I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king, even that which hath already been done? Who can do more than the king can? Well, the king finds out that all the things he's doing have already been done by someone before. So it kind of robs it of its freshness and originality for him. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly as far as the light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head. It means he looks well to his going. But the fool walketh in darkness, and I perceived myself also that one event happeneth to them all. He says, I noticed. The wise man, he looks well to his going. He takes care of himself. The fool, he doesn't pay any attention to where he's going. And then he sees that same thing happens to both wise man and the fool. Then I said in my heart, as happeneth to the fool, even so happeneth even to me. And why was I then more the wise? And then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise man than of the fool forever, seeing that which is now is, and the days to come shall be all forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. So the wise man, he can be all kinds of wise, but he's still going to die one day. And so is the fool. It's kind of interesting. Working as a nurse, I've seen there's a young patient, I think he was in his 40s. He had to get open heart surgery. And because his heart was all stopped up. His arteries were all clogged. And then I've seen 80, 90-year-old patients who drink like mad people and smoke like mad people, and their hearts are just fine. And what comes to mind is, this is vanity and vexation of spirit. Not that I'm advocating smoking or drinking. It's foolish and it will kill you soon. It's just somehow some people sometimes get away with it. And it doesn't make sense. But therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. So Solomon realizes, I've done all these great things. What's going to happen once I'm gone? And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Someone tell me, who is king after King Solomon? Who is
Jeroboam?
Not Jeroboam.
Rehoboam.
Actually, both. You're both right. What happened to King Solomon's kingdom? He gives it over to his son Rehoboam, and what happens to it?
It was split.
It splits. His kingdom's gone. King Solomon's kingdom is gone. His son Rehoboam loses the entire 10 northern tribes. He loses much of the kingdom. Okay, that's all well and fine. Rehoboam didn't live for God. There was in Egypt, at the time of Solomon, Egypt was almost kind of a vassal, not quite, but almost a little bit of a vassal state to Israel. Israel, they were very much subservient to Israel. I don't think they were quite under tribute to Israel, but Israel was the big dog. King Solomon even married Pharaoh's daughter. Well, in the time of Rehoboam, Shishak, king over Egypt, invades Judah, breaks down the walls of Jerusalem, not all the wall, but a large portion of the wall. He breaks down the wall. He takes the treasures out of the king's house. He takes the gold out of the treasury in the Lord's house. And he takes these golden shields, which Solomon had made for the house of the guard. Solomon had these special golden shields made. Shishak takes them. Rehoboam gets out a bunch of brass shields and puts them in their place. King Solomon's domain was ruled by a fool after him. His fears came true. He said, "Who knows who shall rise after me? Will it be a wise man or a fool?" Well, it turns out it was a fool who rose after him. And the reason it was a fool who rose after him was because Solomon raised him to be a fool. Solomon raised his son to be a fool. How many sons and daughters do you have? I don't know. I have no idea, but Solomon's example at the end of his life, Solomon's heart was turned after all these pagan idols by all his wives he married. I suspect the book of Ecclesiastes was written probably at the very end of Solomon's life. He must have gotten his heart right with God when he realized what vanity and vexation of spirit it was, but he left his kingdom to a fool, and the reason he left it to a fool is he raised his son to be a fool. And it was all vanity and vexation of spirit because it was done for the things under the sun. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and equity, yet to a man that hath not labored therein he shall leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. You work real hard, but your son gets it who's never had to work for it, so you don't appreciate what it means. It doesn't mean anything to him that it's a lot of hard work. For all his days are sorrow, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a man that he should eat and drink, that his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. So Solomon then begins to look at things, and he looks at them in somewhat of a more spiritual light. The things we have, the things which will truly bring us joy, are going to be from God. They're not going to be of our own design and efforts. And in the end, God is going to judge evil. In the end, God is going to reward good. But under the sun, it's vanity and vexation of spirit, because it seems that there is no punishment for evil. Solomon goes on to say, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather our stones together, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rent and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit hath he that worketh wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life." So Solomon looks at the things which happen on this earth. There's a time for all kinds of beginnings and a time for all kinds of endings. And eventually all our lives are going to end. He says that there is no good in these things, but for a man to rejoice and do good in his life. And again, Solomon looks at things again in a spiritual light. To rejoice in things God wants us to rejoice. He wants us to live in fullness of joy. Jesus said,